Hi everyone, it's Brian. I'm here again in my home office. Welcome. Uh, I just wanted to send out a short video that I hope accomplishes two goals. One, to give you a sense of what this week looks like and what the following few weeks might look like. And two, to just give you an overview of a brief overview of the history of the genre of pulp fiction. Um, so first of all, just in terms of administrivia and administration, one, yes, as a few of you have noted, the Brightspace page still hasn't been launched. I did try to launch it last night after I was finally given access to it by the IT people again, and it was corrupted. So they're on it, and in the meantime, I'm just going to be doing this, recording from my office, and hoping that you're watching the videos. um, Given the volume of emails I've gotten about The Great Gatsby and some of the questions I've gotten, they've been really great questions. I'm really happy to, and what I've heard in office hours, I'm really happy to discuss more both over email and in office hours on Fridays. And I'll be sending out that office hours link again on Friday afternoon um, to Zoom. It sounds like you're really engaged and interested in the, or many of you are, in Great Gatsby, and I hope that you continue to be as we read through it this week. Um, uh, the other administrative thing to mention is that I'll have a second recorded lecture added either to the first module in the class on the course's website on Brightspace, or I'll just send it out again like this if IT can't resolve the issue. Again, I'm so sorry that they haven't been able to do that yet. Uh, it would be, or rather, I also know that many other students have and faculty friends of mine have mentioned that this is a common thing that happens, um, and would rather that it didn't. Um, so I'm on it. RTAs Kimmy and David are on it, and eventually you'll meet them. Um, and that's also to say that um, in the forthcoming weeks, you'll meet Kimmy and David. But we were hoping to do something of an experiment, given the current situation, that we probably normally wouldn't do in a classroom environment. And we hope you like it. But we were thinking about, in addition to me providing some lecture notes and thoughts and remarks about the books that we're reading during the course of the week, we'd hope that you might enjoy watching us talk a bit about our ideas together. So we've been bubbling together for the last 3 weeks or so, and um, we were hoping that we might have something of a book chat. It would be short, so not to bore you watching someone else's book club, and we try to engage you, obviously. But we're going to try it once or twice and see how it works. Um, and we just wanted to let you know that. I also wanted you to know in the upcoming weeks, not next week, or not this week rather, but potentially next week, that I've contracted with the Writing Center, and I mentioned this in the first email actually, uh, and the first lecture, that the Writing Center will be providing modules for things like helping you with your grammar, with your sense of stylistics, even with piloting you through what it means to think about close reading and deep reading. And all of those skills are essential to succeeding in writing and in life, uh, but particularly in this class. So those modules or those recordings that will be uploaded into a module um, will come out periodically over the course of the term. They are not mandatory, they're not on the syllabus, and you're not graded for them explicitly, but I'll be doing them with you. So just to see how they work and what they're like as a new faculty at Dal. Uh, but I highly encourage you to do them because I think that they could prove to be very valuable to you. Okay. Oh, and the last thing about administrative uh, topics is that on Friday I'll be either emailing out or posting on Brightspace, or potentially both, given how confusing technological difficulties can be up till now. Uh, your first writing prompt. which I hope you enjoy, and I think will be right up your alley. And I'll talk a little bit more about that on Friday when I send out a video in addition to the written prompt. It's very short. You'll have a week to do it. If you think you need longer, you're welcome to email me and we can figure out another schedule. But I'd encourage you to do it as quickly as possible. As I said in the first lecture introducing the syllabus, that it'll be a 1 to 2 page essay that effectively asks you to introduce yourselves to us, to Kimmy and David and me. Um, and there will be more specific prompts for that written out for you. But really, we're hoping that it just gives you a chance to introduce yourselves and let us know who you are, since it's impossible to do that, or virtually impossible to do that with this many people in a class this size. And also for us to give you feedback on your writing without it being recorded, or rather, the grade will exist and be assigned based on the grading rubric that we talked about last time, but it won't be, rather, it won't count towards your final writing grade for the class. And I hope that makes sense. And if it doesn't, let me know and we can talk in office hours. Okay. So that's everything. And I hope everybody's having a good week. And I should have started this by saying welcome to your second week at Dal. The second thing that I wanted to talk about, and I will try to keep this relatively short, is just trying to give you an overview of what the contours of pulp fiction are, and how those, or how that genre, or this genre, evolved and developed over the course of nearly 200 years. So that's a lot to do in about 10 minutes, but I'm going to do my best. The genre itself evolved out of another genre that was called dime novels. It eventually did become part of the pulp genre. But the name, and I said this in the first class, comes from the very cheap wood pulp that early pulps were printed on. And early pulps weren't actually the books that we're reading in this class. They were effectively pulp magazines, really inexpensive, uh, um, often considered pedestrian uh, narratives. And the really expensive kinds, the kinds that would cost you more than a nickel or a dime, were called glossies or slicks. Um, and generally, there was a sense, particularly by the mid-century, by the mid-19th century, I should say, sorry, by the mid-20th century, I should say, the 1900s, the pulp fiction was considered sort of low quality in terms of its literature. You'd see uh, within this genre, and when I say genre, I mean like a classification of literature, right? Like fiction or nonfiction, or novels or poetries or collections or novellas or short stories, dramas, lyrics, all of those things, myths, tragedies and tragicomedies and all of that. Uh, these genres all are part of what we currently know as pulp fiction. They were all pulped in one degree or another. So thinking about the genre as sort of wide-ranging is important, but it's also important to acknowledge that within that genre, you could have Shakespeare next to a monster invasion novel, or a space aliens novel, or a science fiction novel. So, so uh, it's widely ranging. Is an important thing to take away from that. Um, its origins as a term really arose at the very end of the late 19th century, but the height of its popularity as a genre was roughly between the 1920s to the 1950s. And during that period, a number of uh, detective stories, a number of westerns, a number of fantasy novels, and science fiction books and adventure books really came to dominate the literary marketplace of that period. And pulp still exists to some degree, and its antecedents exist. We'll even be reading a very pulpy novel that hasn't actually been turned into pulp fiction in There by Tommy Orange at the very end of our class. Um, but yeah, it's a wide-ranging novel that, sorry, wide-ranging genre that spans over the course of 3 centuries, essentially. So as an instructor, putting together this the syllabus, or being asked to put together the syllabus, you get a lot of chances to pick from both high and low culture, to pick from the detective mystery versus the American classic, um, or the classic American novel, as people like to say. Um, so uh, I just wanted to give you a sense of that history, and the contours of that genre. Pulp also originated and popularized a number of very famous, both American and Canadian figures, cultural figures. Tarzan, the Barbarian, was most certainly a Pulp Fiction novel, or a novel series, I should say. The Avenger came through Pulp Fiction and was popularized by it. Uh, Conan the Barbarian was also a very popular one. So was Zorro, and The Shadow, and The Phantom Detective. So all of these are hugely famous in terms of the sort of the cultural zeitgeist of the 50s and 60s and 70s, and to some degree coming back now again, um, especially in terms of the Avengers. So I also wanted to give you a sense of that. Um, Obviously, you've probably seen, or once you see the course website, you'll see just how vivid some of the cover art for Pulp is, and the ways in which they were made, these covers, in order to be provocative, to try to draw your eye to them so that you buy them. And as I said before, there were thousands and thousands of these novels, and they were widely available at any dime store or print shop, or place where you might buy a paper on a street corner. And that culture doesn't really exist anymore. So it's worth, I think, talking a bit about, and about the ways in which book culture and book reading has evolved over the course of the 20th century in particular. Um, and so many writers were pulped. Everyone from Mark Twain, as I said before, to O. Henry, to Franz Lieber, to Ellen Queen, to P.G. Wodehouse, to throw in a Brit. So this is again a wide-ranging novel, sorry, a wide-ranging genre of novels, and there were dozens and dozens of publishers over the course of the late 19th and early 20th centuries who effectively used these books in order to as cash cows, essentially, to make money. And that, not that that's necessarily a bad thing or a inherently capitalistic thing, but it's also an interesting artifact of the genre. And there's also an interesting legacy of pulp, in the sense that we think about. I think when most people say Pulp Fiction, the first thing that comes to mind is I think it was the 1994 Quentin Tarantino novel, or movie, um, uh, that was based on a pulp magazine of the same name. Uh, um, uh, or rather, sorry, it was based on I forget what it was called now. I think it was called The Black Mask, um, and that was the novel, or the magazine that became a novel that the movie was based on. And I think it does a very interesting job of representing what a lot of the cultural a lot of the mainstream cultural understanding of the term pulp fiction. It's this very violent, hard-boiled detective crime novel that's found in many of um, a lot of the ethos of pulp fiction magazines, and eventually novels themselves too. Um, so this genre of writing, even though to some degree it's disappeared, is still out there, and uh, it's uh, it's antecedent in novels like the graphic novel adaptation uh, uh, of Butler's Kindred, or in there's obvious reference to Pulp Fiction, the movie, I think are worth noting and figuring out or unpacking more of. So I can already see I've hit the 15-minute mark, and I promised myself I wouldn't go past 10 because everyone's cautioned us from recording ourselves talking for too long. Uh, and I definitely have a habit of that. So I'll spare you the rest of this lecture, but just to let you know, welcome again to Dal for your second week, and expect another video on your first reading, The Great Gatsby, in a few days. I've already pre-recorded it, but haven't yet uploaded it. And once I actually can launch the Brightspace page, I will. And I hope all of you and your families are safe, and that we can talk again soon. And look out for that link it's a Zoom link for office hours on Friday. Okay. Well, thank you for listening, and I hope we can talk soon. Take care.